Today, we're going to talk through yet another example of PSA and PWCC letting down customers. This involves a $34,000 Michael Jordan rookie card from 86 Fleer that had a PSA Authenticated auto on there. This sold on PWCC's platform and basically left the customer in a very unfortunate situation because the auto came back as being fake. Now, this was broken by a local news station in the States who basically asked a lot of tough questions.
He paid $34,000 to PWCC, one of the world's largest auction houses. After Ed received the card, he mailed it to another company called PSA to confirm the grading. That's the same grading company the auction house advertised it had used.
Now, as you can see from that clip, the customer won the card, got it in hand, and then decided to have the card itself graded. Previously, it only had the autograph authentication done by PSA. They decided to send it into PSA and got a rather unfortunate letter returned to them.
Ed received this letter back. In our opinion, the aforementioned signature is not authentic and did not pass PSA DNA authentication. It goes on to list numerous reasons why.
It stopped me in my tracks and quite honestly ruined my weekend and put the last 8 to 10 weeks of my life in a spindle, because it was quite a shock.
Now, this left the customer in a very unfortunate situation, right? Because they now just paid $34,000 for this card and were basically SOL. They decided to reach back out to PWCC to try and get, some assistance from them in terms of getting a refund or what the heck the next steps were going to be. Now, given he was sort of getting the runaround, he basically reached out to this news station to help him take it to the next level, right? To try and get them to put pressure on PWCC to do the right thing.
When I reached out to the company, I received this statement. Our biggest priority at PWCC is our customers and trust in our platform. We take claims and issues of this nature very seriously and are actively investigating this matter. In any outcome, we will do the right thing by the buyer and ensure they are protected in this process.
Now, regulars of the channel will know that this is nothing new from PWCC. We see this stuff all the time from them when it comes to cards graded by companies that since are determined to be fake or fake autos or just fake cards ending up on their platform. They seem to really drag their feet when trying to get an answer for their customers. And more often than not, they'll basically say, well, you know what? It is a PSA slab. You need to go talk to PSA. Now, what has essentially occurred in this instance is pretty alarming, because when you look at some of these cards, either side of that serial number, you start to see maybe there's a worrying trend there with PSA's ability to identify whether or not a card has a fake auto or not. But I'll get to that, a little bit later on. Essentially, since this news, dropped, basically PWCC came to the rescue, and lo and behold, they had the $34,000 refund ready to go for this customer.
Sports card collector Ed Yakic now has all $34,000 back after he was the winning bidder of this Michael Jordan rookie autograph card, then discovered it wasn't Jordan who autographed the card after all. For 6 weeks, it seemed he might just be out the money.
Nothing was really moving in the right direction of getting my money back for a card that they said was inauthentic. So shortly thereafter, when I reached out to you, the whole conversation changed.
Now, as you saw, once again, this customer is essentially in a happy spot. But the question we now need to sort of ask is what the heck is going on out at PSA? Because this is not the only card impacted, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. Many other collectors and content creators have done some research and found that there's about 10 to 15 that are also impacted. Now, I should quickly note that a lot of the content that I'm referencing now was first brought to light by the likes of AIH Sports and a guy called J-Brock. I'll get to him a little bit later on because it's a pretty cool shout out that this guy deserves. But it's identified multiple other cards that are also impacted that also indicate some kind of hanky-panky occurring. And I'm going to take you through those now. So as you can see on screen, we've got 12 cards in question. I've done some, grouping of these based on what other people have reported, including J-Brock. The one that's highlighted in yellow is the card we just discussed from that news report. And what you need to often do in these instances, right, where you've seen some, hanky-panky going on or cards get deactivated, is to always look at the serial numbers around the card in question, because that will generally, give you some insights as to what has gone down, whether or not this is multiple things and multiple mistakes that PSA may have made, or whether you are okay. Now, as you can see on screen, what the boys have been able to do is look at those serial numbers either before or after the one in question and notice something very, very interesting. You can see here that there are, in fact, a number of other Michael Jordan rookie cards in here that also have autographs on them that have either been deactivated, not included in the database, or actually still active and out there amongst the wild. Now, it's pretty interesting because the first two, i.e. 32 and 33, are no longer in the database. We cannot confirm whether or not they are Michael Jordan rookie cards or whether or not they have any autographs on them. The two preceding, the one in question, I can't recall if I mentioned earlier, but this one over here, 36, is the one that was listed in that news report. 35 and 34 have been deactivated. They are, in fact, Michael Jordan rookie cards because we have confirmed that they were Auto 9s and they were deactivated on the 12th and 13th of July, respectively. Now, that's pretty interesting because it is, not long after this customer had the issue with PSA. The one in question, as we touched on, and then the three following that are also Michael Jordan rookie cards, two of which are deactivated. For whatever reason, this one is still in the database. I'm going to come to that a little bit later on. The next two are deactivated. We don't know what they were, but they were deactivated on the same day as these ones, leading to some curious answers. I'll get to that a little bit later on as well. 42, again, is in the database. This time it wasn't an autograph, it was a card grade, the rest being only autographs being authenticated. And then 43, not in the database. Again, we cannot confirm whether or not it is a Michael Jordan rookie. Now, there's some questions off the back of this around what's the difference between, not in the database or deactivated. Those are both PSA messaging. I can't confirm that for you. I don't know the details myself. They seem to be used, interchangeably. One thing that's worth keeping front of mind here is that typically people have said, okay, well, were these counterfeit? Is that why PSA removed them? I've seen examples in the past, I'm 99.9% sure of this, that when cards have been flagged for counterfeit reasons, that messaging is put there in the description. These ones literally just say not in the database or deactivated. Now, this is where my question comes for PSA because it looks like there is a run of cards from a single person trying to game the system. Now, some of you might ask the question, well, Daniel, how do you know that these were all part of the same submission? I think the easy answer is I don't know, but coincidentally, and the odds of that being two different people is quite slim in my opinion. Like, what are the chances that you've got this person over here, right? Let's assume that these cards are all submitted by the same person because they were all deactivated at the same time and they're also not included in the database, right? And then it just so happens that the person immediately after those ones in question happened to submit an authentic Michael Jordan rookie card that had an auto grade on there as well. Like, what are the odds of that actually happening? And then following that, immediately having two more be deactivated on the same day. Like, what are the odds of that actually happening? Could it be legitimate? Sure, but that just seems very far-fetched in my opinion. Now, could PSA implement a policy where they're grading all the same sorts of cards that come in at the same sort of time? Yes, but looking at serial numbers in the past, that doesn't look like that's how they operate, right? And by that, I mean, well, they've had, 12 Michael Jordans come in, so they sent them all to one person to look at the same time. History shows, looking at other serial numbers, that's probably not the case. So me seeing this implies that it's all part of the same submission, which then raises that question. Well, if that is the case, and they've all come from the same person, why would you not deactivate them all? Why would you leave these two in here and be completely fine? Now, this one makes sort of sense because it doesn't have an autograph authentication, and based on what we're seeing from that news report, this one was basically removed because it was a fake auto. Well, that would mean that this one probably should have also been removed, and that was the reason why all these ones were removed as well. I just find it incredibly odd that PSA have left that in there. Now, maybe one of the autos was real and the rest were fake, and that's what this person tried to do when they group submitted it, right? Put one smoky gun in there, basically trying to trick the grader, saying, well, this one's real, so the rest must be. But again, that just seems a bit strange, and I don't understand PSA's logic on this instance, or in this instance, I should say. And the reason why this becomes pretty alarming is because it was $34,000. Now, one thing I misspoke on in my weekly news video yesterday that I'll put on screen now is that PSA don't actually give a guarantee over autographs. I was confused in the past because I've seen them hand out and pay out on their guarantee when people have had issues like this. But the reason why this is so alarming is because if you were to buy this, you're not going to get a refund, right? And this guy was very lucky that PWCC turned around and decided to do it in the first place because they had the pressure from the news station basically calling this out for them. Now, you as an individual that goes through something similar might not have that luxury, right? And PWCC would normally turn around, as I sort of alluded to at the very start of this video, and tell you, well, sorry, mate, it's PSA graded authenticated. You need to go talk to them. You talk to PSA and PSA will say, well, sorry guys, we made a mistake, but we don't actually have to pay out on that. Now, as I touched on, I've seen PSA pay out on this in the past, which is where the confusion comes from, right? But based on the wording within their guarantee, within their policy, they don't have to pay out if they don't want to. And I think in this specific case, you need to treat them as not paying out, right? They're not going to pay out. And that's the position you need to take. So you need to factor that in when you're going to buy these cards, right? You need to factor that into your risk appetite and when you yourself are doing your due diligence. Otherwise, you're going to get scammed. And it's just, again, a pretty crazy situation. I don't understand how PSA could sort of make that mistake. Does this raise serious questions over their ability to authenticate autos? Yes, I think it does. Because you've not just got one here. What the heck is going on? And one of the other things to talk about for PSA in this instance that we've heard, Nat Turner talk about as well is that, when they've got expensive cards coming in, they're typically going to the more experienced people. And you like to think if you're getting a card that has a Michael Jordan autograph on there, especially his rookie card, and it's going for autograph authentication, you'd be thinking they'd be going to the most, experienced and advanced people in their business. And if that is the case, they've made a pretty big mistake, which, if that is the case, raises lots of questions around them as a business and their ability to do what they're basically being paid for. And I think the long story short here is PSA really need to update their policy for their payouts to also include autograph authentication, because it's not fair that a customer like this could have lost out on $34,000. PWCC didn't need to pay out, and they only did because of what this news article and this, news anchor basically came out and did. Put the pressure on them to get the right outcome. I just think it's pretty concerning. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this down in the comments below, as always. Very quickly before I decide to, step away and close the video, I want to give a quick shout out to J-Brock and then also AIH Sports. I gave AIH already a shout out for this in my weekly news video, but I haven't yet for J-Brock. He did a phenomenal job. I really liked how he put his video together. I'll put a link down below. It actually has 70,000 views in like 4 or 5 days, which is pretty good for this, industry, right? You don't happen to see that all that often actually with sports card content. And he actually did a fantastic job with how he put the video together. It's a style that I've tried to implement myself in the past, but I just don't have the time to do it. And I think he's done a great job. The reason why I mentioned the view count is it has 70,000 views, but he's only got 282 subs. And I don't say only as if it's a bad thing. I say that because typically when you get big views like that, you see a big uptick in subs, and it hasn't really happened for him. So if you're not subscribed to him, please go check out his video, subscribe, and then let him know that, Dan the Cardman sent you there. Basically just say a joke or something, maybe Dan the Cardman summoned me. If you'll go ahead and do that, and then try and get a response from him, because it should be pretty funny to see what he says when he logs in and sees a bunch of comments basically saying the same thing. So give him a shout out, because I think his channel could have well over 10k subs in the next 6 months. That's my assumption right now. That's my bet. So let's sort of see if it happens. Now, I think that is it. Again, this is just very concerning from PWCC. I'm shocked that they've paid out on this, because typically they haven't. So it's a good thing for the industry to see that they have, and now maybe we can use this as a hammer back towards them if they ever try and play games in the past, or in the future I should say, when it comes to people trying to make a claim for a card they've bought off their platform that is fake, because as I said, typically they point the finger back at BGS and PSA. So yeah, that was sort of it. I'm very shocked that this has happened with PSA. So yeah, that's sort of it for today. As always, drop your thoughts down in the comments below. Give me a like and a follow if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.